Unit 4, Exercise 1. Presentation 1.
The next chart shows the breakdown by age in our company. You can see that the biggest segment, almost 70%, indicates the percentage of employees in the age group 35 to 50. About 19% of our staff are between 51 and 60 years of age, and 2% are above 60. The final pie is the most interesting for our discussion today. It shows the percentage of employees under 35 years of age, which I think you'll be surprised to hear, is currently only 9% of our total staff.
Presentation 2.
Let's now have a look at the sales figures over the past 5 years. First, let me quickly explain the graph. You can see that different colours have been used to indicate each of our main sales areas. The key in the bottom left-hand corner shows you which colour represents which area. The red line, for example, gives us the sales figures for Belgium, the green line is for Germany, and so on. OK, so I'd like to first draw your attention to the sales figures for France. That's the blue line here.
Presentation 3.
Now, I'd like you to take a look at this next slide, which shows how the cost of living developed in Europe between 2003 and 2007. According to the European Economic Institute, living expenses rose by between 1.1 and 2% each year. If you look at the bar chart on the left, you'll see that the highest increase was in 2005, with a rise of 2%.
Unit 4, Exercise 5. Presentation 1.
First, I'd like you to look at this graph, which shows the ups and downs in our passenger volume over the past 9 months. As you can see here, passenger numbers fluctuated between 2.1 and 2.3 million in the first 4 months. They even rose moderately in May, reaching just over 2.5 million at the end of the month. In June, you'll notice a sharp fall in passenger numbers as a direct consequence of HLX's entry into the market. Now, as you all know, HLX is a no-frills airline with direct flights to almost all major Southeast Asian cities. Passenger traffic slumped to about 1.5 million, a decline of almost 40%. In early July, we introduced a new, more aggressive pricing system to boost sales. As a result, ticket sales started picking up in July. By the end of September, passenger numbers had reached just over 2 million.
Presentation 2.
On the next graph, you'll see the sales figures for Systex in the past 5 years. Let me now highlight the most important facts about our hay fever medication. Despite an intensive advertising campaign, we had a slow start in Europe in 2003, selling 500,000 units in the first 12 months. The figure rose by about 50,000 in the following year. In 2005, however, sales rocketed to 1 million following the problems at TC Pharma, our main competitor in the anti-allergy sector. 2006 saw an even further increase in sales to 1.3 million due to the extremely warm and long summer. As expected, sales went down again in 2007 and stood at just over 1 million at the end of the year.
Unit 4, Exercise 11.
The next graph shows the market share of Lifestyle Today for the first 6 months after it was launched in April 2005. As you can see, we started off with a rather low market share of about 7%. Audience ratings improved significantly, climbing to 10% in May. In June, however, the programme's market share plunged to 6%. This drastic decline has a simple cause. We lost a large part of our audience to live transmissions of 2 major sporting events, Wimbledon and the Confederations Cup. Fortunately, this was only a temporary setback. Over the next 3 months, the figures continued to rise steadily and reached record levels each month, 11% in July, 12% in August, and 14% in September.
Unit 5, Exercise 1. Well, this brings me to the end of my presentation. Before I stop, let me go through my main points again. You gave us the brief to find out A, whether we can reduce our air travel costs by using budget airlines, and B, if so, how we should proceed. So, to sum up, first question, is it really viable to use these no-frills airlines? Clear answer there. In some cases, we can save as much as 60% compared to regular flights. The next question, how to proceed? In other words, who would be able to handle the online bookings most efficiently? I'll just run through the 3 different options we investigated again. Option 1, we take on a part-time employee for this job. Option 2, staff book their own flights. Option 3, we outsource this function. So, what is the best solution for us? From a financial point of view, our results are absolutely clear. Option 1. A part-timer would be the best, the cheapest and least time-consuming solution. We therefore recommend that we recruit a part-time employee who could handle all our online bookings. The ideal candidate should either have some internet experience or have previously worked for a travel agent. We'd suggest a limited contract to begin with. So now it's up to you to decide where to go from here. I'm sure you'll make the right choice. Now I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Unit 5, Exercise 6. 1.
Let me go back to the story I told at the start of my talk. Remember? The sales meeting in Vienna with the disappointed Japanese businessman? 3 days later, we got an email saying they were going with us after all. So, this just shows you that knowing your entire product range is the key to success.
2.
So, to conclude, I'm convinced that ICM would be an excellent method to make better use of the knowledge we have. And it would strengthen our market position. So, do we really want to miss this opportunity to get ahead of our competitors?
3.
Finally, let me highlight the key question once again. Do we need a digital telephone system or can we upgrade the existing one? As I've shown in my brief presentation today, we must invest in the new system. An upgrade is just not feasible. I'd just like to finish with something former US President Bill Clinton once said. You can put wings on a pig, but you don't make it an eagle.
4. Before I end my presentation today, I'd like to briefly recap the main reasons for doing business with us. We use state-of-the-art technology. We provide round-the-clock professional customer care. And, most important, we customize our products and services to give you what you need when you need it. So the next step is yours. Set up an appointment with our project manager and our SAP consultant, and we can work out the best practice solutions that suit your business. Unit 5, Exercise 11.
Finally, let me come back to the key points of my talk. I told you that in the first quarter, more than half, or 52% of our revenues, came from overseas. This is in line with the targets we set out in 2004 when we decided we wanted to continue to rely on overseas markets, especially China, to keep growing. In the past 3 months, we've added more new customers in China than in any other country. Now, what are our targets for the next few months? The first major step will be the introduction of our PayPal payment service in China. And then we will focus on finding customers in existing markets, such as the US and Germany, who haven't tried buying from our website yet.
Unit 6, Exercise 1. 1.
And now I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Yes?
You were talking about software problems. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, I mentioned earlier that the new software is being tested at the moment. In the trial runs, we've had more than 150 bugs so far, and at the moment, we're not sure how long it'll take us to solve all these problems. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. 2.
Are there any more questions? Mr. Lee?
Would you mind telling us whether the new software will help to improve our company's image?
I'm afraid I don't quite understand your question. Could you be a bit more specific?
Yes, I'd like to know whether we will also use the new software to make our company more attractive for the customer. I'm talking about a new website, interactive applications, and so on.
Oh, I see. Yes. Well, as I said earlier...
3. I have another question. It's about the piloting stage. Which division will start piloting the software first?
If you don't mind, I'd prefer not to discuss that today. Actually, there will be a meeting next week where that will be decided.
4.
Mr. Martinez, you have a question?
Yes, you spoke about special training courses earlier. Could you tell us how they will be organised?
Sorry, I'm afraid that's not my field, but I'm sure Linda Cole from the training department could answer that question. I'll ask her to get in touch with you on that. Well, if there are no more questions, all that remains for me to do is to wish you a nice evening.
Unit 6, Exercise 4.
Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Could you give us some background information on Track Limited?
Certainly. They are one of the leading manufacturers of outdoor equipment in the UK, with more than 35 factories worldwide.
Would you mind telling us why you've chosen them as partners?
No, not at all. The answer's quite simple. We were very impressed with the quality of their products, and their prices are very attractive.
May I ask a question?
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
I'd be interested to know what their terms of payment are.
I'm afraid I can't answer that question. I suggest you speak to Sylvia Baker. She would be the right person to ask.
Excuse me, you mentioned a London office. Does that mean we do business through them?
That's right. We need to discuss the details, though.
Unit 6, Exercise 7. 1.
So, delivery of the units has been set for the 15th of May. That gives us 3 months to handle the production and packaging. I'd like to turn now to the...
Excuse me. Do you really think that's realistic? I mean, 3 months. What about our staff problems?
If I have understood you correctly, Louise, your question is how we can meet the delivery date, as we are slightly understaffed in production at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, let me answer your question right away. First of all...
2.
And talking of mergers, don't forget the successful German hair care company Weller, which was taken over by Procter & Gamble only a few years ago. What we need to discuss is whether it's the right moment for us to consider a merger with Carter Financial Services.
Could you tell us what their turnover was last year?
Sorry, if you don't mind, I'd like to answer your question a bit later, when we discuss the financial side of this merger. OK, I was just moving on to the timing of the merger, and I really...
3.
And this brings me to the most important topic of today's session. Due to our new European harmonisation strategy, our complete sales, after-sales and marketing departments will be relocated to Aberdeen by July next year. Now, I know this may come as a shock to most of you, but I can guarantee that all the staff affected will be fully supported every step of the way.
Excuse me, but may I ask how you propose to support those people who are tied to this location? For example, those of us who care for elderly parents or whose children are in a special needs school, for example.
Yes, that's a very valid question. Let me just repeat it so everybody can hear. You're concerned about staff members who will find it difficult to move away from Bristol due to family commitments. Yes, well, of course, we will not force anyone to move, and our Works Council is working very closely with HR to find the best solutions for everyone. If you look on our intranet...
4.
The main advantages of smart credit cards are...
Oh, sorry to interrupt, but could you explain what smart means in this context?
Yes, sure. It means that the big credit card companies like Visa and MasterCard use special microchips instead of the usual magnetic strips on their cards. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So, let's go back to the main advantages of smart credit cards.